We welcome you to day number 4. Is it day number 4? Day number 4 of our Family Restoration Week. Today, we are talking about understanding and dealing with infidelity in marriage. Understanding and dealing with infidelity in marriage. Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we are grateful for the opportunity that you have given us to come to sit at thy feet. Lord, we ask that you speak as only you could. Speak a message that we need, a message that as individual we need to challenge us to reform our ways and also to strengthen us in the journey of a Christian life. Let your message be redemptive. Let your message bring about salvation for our souls. To that end we pray that you bless the presentation and the listening thereof. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. As you said the other day, the family has become the battleground. If the war that is going on in the universe has moved its center of focus where the battle is being fought is in our homes. If there is a place where demons have been unleashed, it's at the home. And there's a reason for that, because the devil knows that the family is the fountain out of which springs life. And the devil has decided he is going to poison the fountain. So that if you poison the fountain, people will get sick downstream. If you poison the family, you will realize that people who will go to churches will be deformed. People who are going to be in the communities will be deformed. And that's what the devil has decided, to attack the very foundation of life. If there is a place where we need to pray more than ever before, is our homes, our families. Even in a happy marriage, the devil's agenda is to make you unhappy, dissatisfied, somehow to feel like you lack something, so that you can easily be tempted. We need to realize that there are many who are unhappy in their homes and they don't know why. They've got everything else, but somehow the devil takes away your contentment and your joy to make you so that you can easily be tempted. I want to remind the church that the devil went to the Garden of Eden, a place that was holy, a place that was perfect. If he could get to the Garden of Eden, he can get to Harare. We need to realize that after you have prayed, after you have fasted, after you have returned your tithe, after you have given your offerings, you have given to church building, the devil comes knocking at the door the very next day. After you've given the best, the devil, that's why he is the devil, because he does devilish things. According to some sources, up to 60% of married men and up to 40% of married women will have had an affair during the course of their marriage. I was doing some seminars in Cape Town with one psychologist, and she was bringing about some statistics about young married women, young married professional women. And she says young professional women, according to the latest statistics, are more promiscuous than young married men. It seems like as we're doing women empowerment, we're empowering them in all other spheres. The fact of the matter is that sometimes it is nice to be tempted. It feels good. You see, when the devil is tempting you, it's not painful. It feels good. Sometimes the temptation boosts your self-esteem. It makes you feel important while the devil is dangling something in front of you. It somehow It makes you feel good inside. And I said to a young man, if the devil wants to get you, he can get Miss Universe and come to you and says, wow, young man, where do you come from? The devil flatters us, make us to feel special, and in the process, he attracting us. You see, if temptation was painful, nobody will fall into them. It's just that it's nice. Sometimes you know you are playing with fire, but you don't want to go very far from the fire. You just want to stay close to it. And you know that somehow, one mistake, you're going to be bent. But you still hang around next to the fire. It is easier to condemn others. How dare she commit adultery? How dare he does that? But when it comes to you, you can justify. Yeah, it was just. You see, if people were as harsh to themselves as they are to others, there will be no adultery. They justify and protect themselves instead of being as harsh as they are to those around them. And the good book says there is a way that looks right in the eyes of man, but its end is unto death. You see, the enemy of our soul, the devil is patient. You see, nobody comes to a sudden fall. You see, the devil, when the devil wants to destroy you, he can take a 5-year plan. He doesn't have to make you fall today. He can take a 5-year plan. All that the devil wants from you is for you to take one wrong step. And you take another one. And you look around, you find yourself a member in good and regular state. And you take another step. Or they're still electing you in the church, they're still trusting you, you're still making an elder, you think that's fine. It's still another step. Until you become comfortable in doing wrong. And then one day, you take one step. You fall. Anytime you see somebody falling, you must know they've been falling for a long time. The path to destruction is gradual. The devil's path is a slippery path. When you deal with God, you are dealing with suddenly, immediately, at that very hour. But the devil is gradual. He take out a few years of lease on you to destroy you. One preacher says the devil has got 99 blankets. Every time you do wrong, the devil gives you a blanket to cover you. You do another thing wrong, another blanket. Another wrong, another blanket, until you reach blanket number 99. And then you are so used to the blankets that he will cover you. You do another wrong, and this time the devil says, "Eish, my friend, I just have a new person who started sinning. The blankets are for the new guy." But not only does he do that, but he hangs you dry so that everybody can see. Because you see, the devil is no friend. You see, don't play with the devil's toys. You know, just stay away from his toys, because he's the kind of a guy who exposes those who are supposed to be his friends. Understanding and dealing with infidelity in marriage. That's what we're talking about today. Flirting. Flirting is one way that the devil enters into and introduces the idea of infidelity. What is flirting? Flirting is defined as a playful behavior designed to arouse sexual interest, or to behave romantically without serious intent. Now, a person who is flirting does things in different ways. They might just be staring at you, and when you look, they smile. They're staring at you. When you look, they smile. You can't even say, "Why are you looking at me? I'm married." You become a fool. You become a fool. So, did somebody ask you? Sometimes it is just appreciation. Appreciation, it starts with, "It's a beautiful dress." Then the next day is, "You look beautiful." Then the next day is, "Wow, you look gorgeous." In no time, sure, that's sexy. Now it depends on how you respond to that. When he says you look sexy, if the response is like, thank you, thank you. If somebody says, what? Oh, you know me, I'm just joking. You know me, I'm just joking. You see, people who are flirting, they always find a way out of whatever they're doing. So if he says, you look sexy, and then she says, oh, thank you, thank you. Then he says, I wish you were mine. And he said, what? Oh, you know me, just joking, just joking. And if she says, you with your jokes, I'm serious. Because in flirting, they keep on testing the ground. And they keep on leaving the door open to go out. And go in and go out. And that's why it's a source for temptation. Women do the same thing also. You see, when women flirt also the same way, they can use the staring. And also, when a woman is flirting with a guy, everything he says, because you see, women understand that men don't need so much appreciation on their looks. It's their ego that is important. So everything he says, wow, you are so smart, you're so intelligent. I never thought of it like that. Everything, even though you're talking nonsense, it's just every kind of stupid thing. You say, wow, you're so amazing. You're so, and they know. You see, whenever a man's ego is massaged, that's the right place. Because men want people who are worshiping them. So they flirt by worshiping the ground on which they stand. And creating a current around themselves which says you are the important one. You are the. And so both men and women do engage in the business of flirting. So people who are flirting are sending a message. It's very confusing because sometimes people who are flirting, they just say, I think you are attractive, and leaving it there. Another one says, I think you are attractive. Do you think also I'm attractive? Do you want a relationship? So the issue of flirting is confusing because of the different messages that it's sending. So when you flirt, you are adding a sexual current to your communication with a man or a woman. And sometimes with women, they play a game of flirting and says that I'm off limits. But that's a problem with men because men want to be hunting. So they think it's a challenge for them to chase you further. And they end up doing that. So that becomes a challenge in that regard. So, and that's why the issue of flirting is such a big challenge. Many have fallen into trouble because of that. Because flirting is an entry to many of the challenges that we have in marriage. Many played with fire and got burnt. Types of affairs. Now, somebody says there are 4 types of affairs that people have. The first one is an object affair. I think we touched on that yesterday. An object affair is when a cheating partner retreats from spending time with your spouse and spending time with an object. It can be a video game, it can be television, it can be English soccer, it can be whatever. Whatever takes your time, you are supposed to be with your spouse, you are having an affair with it. If it is work, you are jollying with your work. And if it is soccer, whatever it is, because marriage was, you are going to prioritize your spouse over everything else. But when something else has become a priority, that you are having an affair with. There are people who are so glued on television. The spouse is waiting in the room, waiting for other activities, and one is just still watching soccer until midnight. So you are having an affair with the television, or the internet, or WhatsApp, or social media. Whatever it is, you are having an affair with. Number 2 is a sexual affair. A sexual affair is what you traditionally call a one-night stand. It's when 2 people meet just for sex. It's no emotional connection. There is no relationship. They just meet together for sex. As soon as they finish, oh, by the way, what's your name? that kind of a relationship, that's number two. Number three is an emotional affair. Emotional affair is where two people never become engaged, sleep together, but they are connected emotionally. It's an intense emotional relationship. Now this I'm going to spend a bit more time on because many of you are involved with that one. I'm not going to ask people to confess yet. We're going to come back to that one later on. And lastly, number 4, it is the secondary relationship. The secondary relationship is the traditional affair. It's one that includes emotional, love, and sex. It's like a duplicate of what you have at home. And people start lying to each other and say, oh, I'm going to divorce my wife, I'm going to marry you, or I'll divorce my husband and marry you, and all kinds of things. I mean, which is kind of madness. I just don't know whether people think rationally. I don't think people who are in an affair actually think rationally. I think they're bewitched. Because common sense will tell you, if he says he's going to leave his wife and marry you, he's having an affair with you while he's married, you know that this person is not reliable. He is a person who does not faithful to one woman. So that means if he marries you, you are going to be the one inside while he's having an affair with somebody else. So if people were smart, they're going to say, you're divorcing your wife, divorce your wife and marry somebody else, or remain on the side. Because it seems like the side chicks are the ones who are having a good life. The ones in the middle are the ones who are being fried. So in reality, but people believe it. So somehow we believe that I'm so special. You know, when he marries me, I'm going to cure him of infidelity. So I'm going to be, because of who I am. If Jesus is failing to convert that person, and you think you've got powers more than Jesus to change that person, then you've got something coming your way. So let's go back to emotional infidelity. Now, as you said, this does not involve sexual relation, or at least the depth of it, but it's an intense emotional connection. Unlike a sexual affair, people don't wake up and say, I want to have an emotional affair. It starts off as a friendship. And people start sharing, talking to each other, and as time goes on, they start sharing deeper and deeper things until intimate things about their relationship becomes open to each other, until they are connected emotionally. So it starts with friendship, and it gets deeper and deeper with time. And so eventually people talk about everything about their relationship. Now, this bond is also possible between people of the same sex. So, you see, people can be emotionally attached to another friend or to a sister. If you want to know who you are emotionally attached to, ask yourself 2 questions. If something really good has happened to you, something good, maybe you got a new job or you got a business offer, something, who is the first person you're going to call? When something really bad has happened, maybe you've been fired, you lost your business or something, who is the first person you're going to call? You lost your mother or somebody, who is the first person you're going to call? For some of us here, it's not your spouses. And it happens differently. I was talking to a young couple, preparing them for marriage. And the young lady said, she stopped me, she says, yes, I'm attached to my younger sister. I said, well, how does it happen? How does it? She says, no. She was a student at university. She says, I will pass a course, maybe some exam. Then I'll call my fiancé and say to him, oh, I've passed this exam. And my fiancé will say, congratulations, well done. Yeah, it ends like that. She says, then I will call my younger sister and say, I have passed. She goes crazy. She says, what? Don't say it. For the next 13 minutes, they will be shouting backward and forward, celebrating that pass. And the question is, if you have passed an exam, are you going to call the guy who says, congratulations, well done? Or you're going to call the one who goes crazy? And this is one thing that we fail to realize, that emotional connection cannot be dictated by the terms of marriage. It's dictated by the friendship and the connection that we invest on each other. Because the other day I got a friend of mine calls me, and you can hear from the voice, he's excited. He says, I've been appointed to this commission. And so I said, oh, hurrah, praise God. Oh, yeah. Then afterwards, what does it mean? But one is excitement. I can't cool him down first and ask him. We celebrate first, and then I say, my friend, but what does it mean? Are you getting more money? Is there going to be something for me on the side? But the issue is that when somebody's crying, you cry with them. When somebody is excited, you get excited with them. And that's what, you see, many of us can be married, but we're not friends. And the good thing with that friendship is that you can befriend even your husband or your wife. But friends are people who are there. They celebrate with you, they cry with you, they support you, they don't judge you, they're there for you. And that's what is missing sometimes in our relationship. We become formal, we become parents, we become sexual partners, we make babies and we other things. And we're not friends. Our friends are outside of the two of us. Right? And that in itself becomes a challenge. So, how does an emotional affair start? This is how an emotional affair starts. So, between a husband and a wife, there's supposed to be a constant flow of emotions, backward and forward. Love is supposed to be flowing, caring for each other and going backward and forward. But then what happens is that there is a congestion sometimes, a communication breakdown, a conflict that blocks the flow. Now, you see, emotions are like a tap of water, which is always open. They are always there. So you can't, and so because they are there, in the family, because of the congestion, you're blocked with them. Well, I'm not talking, I'm talking using sign language. You can feel that there's supposed to be a flow, they're holding on inside, there's a pressure because of wanting to go out. So, and then, so imagine, the lady goes to work. Once she gets at work, suddenly there is Jackson at the door. Right? I hope there's nobody called Jackson here. Because I've been using the name Jackson for so long, but now history has been made. Because I was in Bulawayo about 2 years ago, and I was talking about Jackson. But this year I met a guy, he says to me, do you remember talking about Jackson in Bulawayo? I said, yes. He says, my wife was pregnant. And he says, guess what the name of the child is? Jackson. So, in honor of my seminar, St. Jackson was born. Now, so anyway, so when she gets to the door, there is a Jackson. Somehow the devil just, a hunk of a man, Jackson. He opens the door for him. And he says, good morning. How are you? Now, when he says, how are you? She didn't hear, how are you? She heard something else. She felt like, he cares about me. You see, when you are in the desert, a glass of dirty water will be appreciated. In the starvation that she is, when Jackson says, how are you? Wow, somebody cares about me. He says, oh, I'm fine, I'm fine. And you can see he's overwhelmed. You know when people say, respond to you, and they want you to say more. She's thirsty. She just drank the cup of dirty water. She wants more dirty water. She's like, and how are you? And Jackson is feeling overwhelmed by this response. Because Jackson in this case is innocent. He had no wrong intentions. I know Jackson. So now, and then Jackson gets overwhelmed by this. Then he says, let me say something. He says, so how was your weekend? She said, wow, he cares even about my weekend. Nobody cared. So then she said, oh, the routine, laundry, and whatever. She's making the, now they're stopping the conversation. And then she's making this long, and Jackson feels like, I can say Jackson is an innocent guy in this situation. And so Jackson feels like, let me just say something for the sake of saying. Then he says, beautiful dress. He was just saying so that at least when she says that, oh, you think so? Thank you, Jackson. From there she goes to the mirror in the bathroom. Look at herself. And so from there, they start every meeting during coffee time, and they start chatting, they start talking, and what project are you on? I'm working on this project. Somebody cares about my project and what I'm doing and what's happening and what I'm growing and whatever the role I'm performing. And the more they do this, the bond is becoming stronger between the two of them. But Jackson is also an outlet that releases the pressure. So when she gets home, she's no longer like that. She's happy. She's busy singing. Anywhere with Jesus, na, 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 na. Feeling anywhere, na, 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 na. And then the husband looks at him and says, now she's behaving. That's how a woman must behave. He doesn't know that's the Jackson factor. and even if the husband is going to shout at her, she doesn't no longer get hurt anymore. She says, I'm going to go and tell Jackson at work. And Jackson will say, well, there are some men who can't handle a powerful woman. Even the man is just stressed, he's just having his own issues. But, it's not his fault that he's in a career that is going nowhere. So this whole thing continues because the outlet that Jackson is bringing is powerful for her own survival. She can breathe. Now, the challenge of emotional affairs is this, that there is no sex. Because when there is no sex, we the preachers of the gospel and say, you must repent, you must stop adultery, repent. She looks at herself and says, I'm not doing adultery, we're just talking to Jackson. Talking about them. She says, amen. Yeah, tell them. Because there is no sex, it's not seen as because there's nothing physical, there's no need to repent. That's why it continues without repentance. And secondly, it's an outlet of life. It's something that I used to breathe. I remember talking to a friend and trying to help her out of this. She felt like I was killing her, like die again, like it's like I was dead. So I was like, die again. It's good for you. So the challenge with that is this, that it is an outlet of survival. So what is the solution to the issue of this? It's not really cancelling this thing out or stopping this thing. The solution is clearing the congestion. When the congestion is cleared, there is a flow between the two. There is nothing that goes into an outlet when the main pipe is functional. And that's why the sooner we clear this, the better. Unlike allowing this congestion to be there and becomes difficult, the rust develops here until it becomes difficult to clear. Why should we be concerned about emotional infidelity? Because emotional infidelity drains the oil that makes our marriages smooth. It drains it and leaves it dry. See, the emotional and feelings is a higher level of connection between your spouses. We're caring, not because you are right, but because I love you. Because you are crying, I cry with you. Because you are happy, I'm happy with you. You see, when you reach that level, this is what people must realize. When somebody says, I feel somehow, they are not asking for a debate. They are saying, override your arguments and debates and accept my pain. Right? So, and that's why you don't go into a taxi and say, I feel. You say, I feel to someone who cares. Because only people who care about you cares about your feelings. Right? So, when somebody says, I feel, they are saying, upgrade to the caring level. And so, that's what emotional connection is for. So, it drains that. When we no longer have that emotional connection, the marriage becomes mechanical. It becomes paying fees, it becomes doing this, children this, doing that, and becomes just a mechanical business. And our life becomes the people we are connected with. Even though they might be our brothers or our own sisters or people of the same sex, but it becomes that the things remain dry. And secondly, the reason why we should be concerned about emotional affairs is that 50% of emotional affairs end up being full-blown affairs. They graduate to full-blown affairs. And that has to do with how a woman perceived issues of sexuality. Issues of sexuality from a woman perspective has to do with someone who cares about my emotion is the one who is worthy of my body. Many men don't understand the pain of rape. The pain of rape is not just physical violation. It's emotional violation, because a woman cannot sleep with a man who is not in the heart first. So when somebody rapes a man, a woman, is actually violating them more emotionally than physically. But the inverse is one who cares about my heart, who cares about my emotions, deserves my body. That's why emotional affairs becomes a great temptation to say, you have already qualified for my heart, you have already qualified for my body because you're in my heart. And that's why it becomes a temptation that leads to a full-blown affair. So that's why we need to worry about that. Whereas men's attraction to sexuality is with their eyes, women is with their heart. And that's the difference that we need to understand when we come to that. Because men think like men. Because, I mean, if a man was to be raped, halfway through he was going to change his mind. But and that's why they fail to understand. A woman cannot change their mind on the issue of rape. It actually becomes more and more of a pain in that regard. Okay. The causes of adultery. Adultery sometimes happens as a result of the habits, conduct learned before marriage. I'm having a wonderful time in the morning talking to young people, high school young people, talking to them about issues of dating and sexuality and all of those things, and trying to prepare them, because if we start having habits of sleeping together before marriage, marriage will not stop them, since there is no there's no salvation in marriage. So that habit that we start will continue into marriage. So sometimes it has to do with that we'll never have self-control. So the same behavior continues even in marriage. Sometimes it's neglect and ill-treatment for each other. Women hardly ever go into adultery looking for sex. They normally do because they're looking for affection. And it's just that in the process it comes connected. So neglect and ill-treatment will be one thing that will push a woman towards that, to look for affection somewhere else. And that's why to prevent it is not to neglect each other and to take care of each other. A collapse of marriage can be a result of failure to understand what marriage is. Some people who are married, but they never understood what marriage is. They read too many of those fairy tales that people lived happily ever after. And they expect to live happily ever after. Nobody lives happily ever after. This marriage thing is serious. It's work. You don't live happily ever after. You work thereafter before you can live happily. So some people don't understand because they are not privileged to attend my seminars. Now, so sometimes it's poor communication. Communication breakdown makes us no longer to talk to each other. While we're talking to our friends and other people, we form attachments there. Unresolved conflict, the same effect. Unrealistic expectation. If you expect the world, the heaven on earth or whatever it is, and those expectations can lead to conflict. Sometimes it's financial problems that leads to infidelity. Now, sometimes it's because people are exposed to situations they're not prepared for. Suddenly, you're moving with your boss to go to Johannesburg or for a conference, and you're busy having tea at 9 o'clock in the evening and all of those things, and something happened. So anyway, others, it started up as a friendship. It's a friendship. One of the most common among Christians, has to do with friends, and people don't understand. So here is a husband and a wife, and they're friends, a couple of friends. So what then happened is that this woman goes to talk to this husband to say, hey, your friend is doing this and that. So when she talks to him, he then intervenes and talks to the friend and try to get things better, things work. And again, she talks to him another thing. And later on, he also talks to her about the problems. And in the problem of consoling each other in this, a bond develops. Right? It is this. That's why leave it to a professional counselor. Don't try to be counseling your friends, because sometimes you are going to fall into trouble. The same applies to church leaders and pastors. Normally, many pastors don't fall out of vice. It's out of virtue. It's just the dangers of the job. It's like when you work in the mine and the stone falls on you. It's just part of the dangers of the job. I mean, a woman can fall on you. So, and it happens simply this way. Here is a woman comes up to the pastor with a problem, and the pastor listens and listens and give one or two advice. But the main thing is listen. One or two advice. She is so impressed. Somebody finally who listens. Finally somebody who understands. She feels good. She gives accolades to the man of God. Thank you, Pastor. You saved me. I was so depressed. And then the pastor feels good that he's doing ministry. He's really doing real ministry. Or the elder, he feels that he's doing real ministry because his wife told him that you're not good for much. But now somebody, even the church, they asked the conference to transfer him. But now there is one woman who believes he's a real minister. Right? So because of that, he looks forward to the next appointment so that he can minister to her. And she looks forward to be heard. And the more they do this, the more the bond develops. And one thing is to another. It's not vice. It's just virtue. The dangers of the job. That's why one of the things, saying to the elders, they were saying when they were training us, that if you are counseling someone, don't stop praying every day. Sister Mary, you know what she's going through, because prayer has got an affectionate part to it. If you keep on praying for Sister Mary will, that's why the Bible says pray for your enemies, because the idea of prayer brings affection. So stop praying for Sister Mary every day. There are many things to pray about. There is people in Mongolia, there is people in Zaire, there are all kinds of things. There is even that American crazy president. I mean, you can pray for many things. Stop praying for one person all along. And sometimes it has to do with position and power increases, particularly to a black man. The more you start having power, you start having more resources, you think you own all the women, you think everybody is looking at you and whatever. That's why sometimes, as I said, poverty can be good to us. Particularly for a black man. Poverty. Sometimes I feel like praying for some of you to remain poor, so that you can go to heaven. Some of you can't handle success. So to others, it's midlife crisis. Early years of marriage, sexual satisfaction, then wife's menopause, decreased desire, husband midlife, less ability but more desire. Then men's advances are rejected by the wife, she's not so much interested. And then sinful effort to prove, leading to extramarital affairs. This is when grown-up men end up going to young people because they want to prove that they are still men. Now that thing is wrong. Forget about what the Bible says. It's just morally wrong to undress in front of children. I mean, just for your own dignity. These children are going to disrespect all of us. They look at because of you, they look at all of us and say, there is nothing. Just for
our own dignity, just stay at home. Because some of the things don't function like they used to. At least the old lady at home knows when things are like this. There is this and that. And sometimes she also remembers she used to be a tiger. So let's stop embarrassing ourselves, man. Let's stay at home. Yeah. We had our chance. We had our time. Stay at home. Because young people are going to talk right on Facebook about us. They don't respect us. Yeah. So just for our sake, stay at home. Infidelity does not make sense. There is no good reason for it. Because why will a man leave the same thing at home and go look for it somewhere else where he risks so much? I mean, the two women are almost the same. They're the same. They both have got 2 eyes. Both of them have got 2 hands, 1 mouth, 2 ears. Yeah. I know some of you are corrupt. Your mind is on something else. I'm not the picture of why leave the same things at home and go and risk so much? You know. There was a man, story of a man, you know, back home. Oh, by the way, you call them small houses here, right? And you see, I understand because I've been here long enough. But I was doing care meeting, English care meeting in Blawayo with a colored guy in Cape Town, colored guy in Cape Town, and you know, he comes to me and says, "Hey, Mashudu, hey, many women here are complaining about small houses. Why can't Zimbabwean men build big houses?" Adultery is a demon. One who commits adultery is a slave of sin. People might think they are hated, but they are captive, the slave. She's controlled, or he or she is controlled by their lack of self-control. And I look at adultery as eating from the rubbish bin. That's why people get sick. Why would you eat from the rubbish bin when there is food on the table? Why would you go and risk so much when there is all you need on the table? Adultery is like a drug. There is no limit for it. You see, lust is not thirst. It can't be quenched. Right? So, it's not like you want to drink water where you drink is enough. You can't have enough of adultery. You can't have enough of lust. The more you do it, the more you need. The more itching, the more it wants more. It can't be quenched. No way of satisfying it. And as soon as it takes over, a person will end up sleeping with anything. The woman called me, when I was to do my radio program, called me and she says to me, my husband, we're talking about adultery, she says, my husband was always known for committing adultery in the workplace and in the community here and whatever. She says, before he died, he had slept with a dog. You see, when the demons have taken control, a person will end up sleeping with anything because they are possessed by these demons. When a person commits adultery, he is inviting demons into his family. Right? I always say that when a man stands at the door of where you're going to commit adultery, at that point, he undresses himself the spiritual protection. The angels that normally guides you and protects you, they leave you. So when you enter into that room, you are naked twice, physically and spiritually. And the demons take over and take charge. When the person goes home, they go home with the demons. Right? And that's why there is fighting at home. Because the demons can fight. And these demons, change your taste buds. That the things you used to enjoy are no longer nice. And the ones from the rubbish bin are the ones that taste right. So when you expose yourself to that, and that's why it's important for us to realize that even for those of us as spouses, when your spouse is getting involved with that you are fighting not against flesh and blood. So you can't deal with adultery through shouting, through beating someone. You can't beat the demon. You can't even cry. When that seems to have come into your house, put on the whole armor of God and go down on your knees and fight a spiritual war and fight the demonic that is there. Because you can't, this is not flesh. Crying and whatever, it won't help you. We are fighting a spiritual war. Adultery is sin. The seventh commandment, Exodus 20 verse 14 says, thou shalt not commit adultery. It is important for us to realize that adultery is not a marital problem. Oh, let me repeat because you didn't hear that. Adultery is not a marital problem. It's a spiritual problem with marital consequences. It's not a marital problem. You see, adultery would have been a marital problem if it was you who said, thou shalt not commit adultery. But it is God. God never consulted with us why he says, thou shalt not. It's a spiritual problem. So a person who is committing adultery is not trying to hurt you as a spouse. They are trying to hurt God. They are trying to hurt God. In fact, they are lifting a middle finger to God. They are saying to God, I don't listen to you. I don't obey you. They are violating God. And you know, they are violating the very God who gives them life. You know, you can't commit adultery without the power of God. You need God to give you strength even to sin. So you violate him and you still rely on him. If I was God, when you start doing adultery, I was going to turn down your oxygen level. Knock off. When you try to get up again, turn it off. But God is full of grace. So we need to understand that people who are committing adultery, they're not trying to hurt their spouses, they are hating God. So don't make it personal. Don't make it personal like, what does that other woman have that I don't have? It's not about you, it's bigger than you. Yeah. It's not because you are fat or you are skinny or it's not because your eyebrows are not straight. You know, it's not that. It's that you don't have other people's hair. It's not that. It's not that. Don't stress yourself. You end up having ulcers and all problems. No, it's not about that. It's bigger than you. It's bigger than you. It's at another level. And that's why you must take it. In fact, when you see your spouse committing adultery, you should have been going to your spouse and say, oh, my husband, what are you doing to God this? After all that he did for us. Oh, my husband. You are being cruel to God. How to deal with infidelity in marriage? Fight a spiritual fight for your marriage. Fight to win back your spouse. Give them when you've got nothing to give. Fight. I was talking to someone in another town, and she says to me, oh, my husband is committing adultery. I said to her, she says, what must I do? I said, when he comes, treat him like a king. Give him the best food. Tell the children to respect him. Honor him. Let him feel important. The sister was not convinced. She says, I said, that's what you must do. When you do that,
You are standing on the GPS coordinates of blessings. God says, be still and know that I am God. He says, I will fight for you. He will fight for you. So many of us don't realize, you see, when you are fighting for yourself, God cannot fight. He says, stand still and see the deliverance. And when you stand still, you are standing at the GPS coordinates of blessings. God will bless you when you stand there. I said to her, treat him like a king. Do good. That's what the Bible says. Do good to those who do evil towards you. Honor him. And I said, it doesn't mean that your husband won't go back to the small house. I said he will. But when he goes to the small house, that becomes personal. I get involved now. Me, Mashudu, get involved. It's personal. You are standing at the right place, GPS coordinates of blessings, and he goes back to the small house. I get involved. I pray heaven for a heavenly wind in the small house. I pray for chaos in Jesus' name in the small house. I pray for some mighty wind that shake the small house. While they are cooking, 5 minutes, the pot bends. While they're trying to put sugar, they put salt. In no time, there is a whirlwind. They are fighting each other. They are shouting at each other. They don't know what's happening. I pray for heaven whirlwind. And finally, right there in the small house, he's sleeping facing the wall. And she's facing the door. And while he's facing the wall, he says, but what am I here? When I have a wife who treats me like a king, who respects me, who honors me, let me go home. But if the wife at home is doing fire, fighting, whatever, he stays in the small house. There is no power to unearth the small house. Many times as Christians, we don't believe that God will fight for us. But God will fight for us. And when God decides to fight for us, He doesn't fight fair. He doesn't fight fair. He doesn't use conventional warfare. When God decides He's going to beat you up, He's going to sort you out, you must ask Pharaoh. He doesn't fight fair. So God, be still and know that He's God. Trust God to fight for you. A man confessed, it's a true story. Business associate, we were sitting one day, actually we were sitting at a wedding or something, we were sitting under a tree. There was a wedding against someone. And this man, I don't know why he decided to confess to us. We were just business associates there. And he says, you know, he took a girlfriend to a hotel. The wife is praying at home. He's taking a girlfriend. The wife doesn't even know. He takes the girlfriend to the hotel. He says, we enter book the room. We go to the room and we're about to start the ministry. Came there for. He says he realized there was no network connection. He says he tried everything. There was no network. The beat switch was down. He says, I tried every skill. Nothing happened. He says, I eventually went to the bathroom. And I went to the bathroom, I talked to the network, and I said, network, I've already paid. This is an embarrassment. He said, the network couldn't come back. He says, afterwards, he went to the woman and he says, here is the money for transport. Nothing will happen to me. God will fight for you. What God did, probably He just switched off the network of the whole hotel, like knock off the whole area. If there was somebody there with his own wife, say, hey, why is this not happening? Because there's one scene in the hotel, just knock off the whole network. Just turn it off. God can switch off the whole Harare for you. And the saints are complaining, what's happening? There's one scene in Harare. God is trying to sort out. Do good, stand in the GPS coordinates of blessings. How to prevent infidelity.
It is important for us to realize that adultery is not really a problem in marriage. It's a result of a problem. Every time you see adultery, so that's why it's wrong to think marriage was killed by adultery. Adultery does not kill marriage. Adultery is like worms. They come on a carcass. They come after death. Every time you see adultery, you must know there is death. That's why it doesn't help to say, leave my husband alone. No. It's like fumigating the worms on a carcass. More worms will come out. Because the body itself is dead. So the idea, every time when people say I'm divorcing because of adultery, it's wrong. You can't divorce for adultery because adultery came after the death. Every time, anytime adultery comes in, there has to be a death of the marriage or a death spiritually, or both. As long as there is life, adultery cannot happen. If I'm alive now, even if you put a worm here, my antibodies will kill it. Temptations will come. If you've got a happy, healthy marriage in a healthy, happy Christian, temptation will not stick. So, the issue is not dealing with worms, is to prevent death. What must be done to make sure death does not come in the first place? How do we make our marriages to be happy and thriving so that the sicknesses are not there? Forget about death, that the sicknesses are cured as soon as they come. Because sometimes we let the sickness to continue to deteriorate until death comes. So, we need to prevent death, spiritual death. Anything that stops growing starts dying. Make sure we are growing spiritually. How do we encourage each other on a daily basis to grow? Family devotion, sharing the word, public declaration of your faith. It also helps, particularly if you are you're going to a new job. Just declare to them you're a Christian. If you're a man, tell them I'm a pastor. That I'm fully serious. It will help you. Public declaration will help you. Because sometimes when you become a bit weak, but fully loose. So declare yourself and live what you preach. Pray and fast for your own marriage and your own family. Marital death, family must be kept alive and happy. Keep away from debt. There's nothing that kills marriages like debt. Stay away from debt. Resolve conflict as they happen. Have regular sex. And appreciate each other daily. Obviously the point is, if you leave home having had a full breakfast, you won't be tempted to buy fat cakes, dusty fat cakes along the streets. Let him wear an ear. Prophet. Appreciate each other daily. Seek counseling when necessary. Avoid temptations. I mean, if you need to go to Bulawayo in a car with a colleague, and you can see that it's a little tempting, something, avoid those kind of, don't make yourself strong. Say, you know what, I'll use my car, use yours, because after that I'm going to visit my cousin. Even if you are lying, God will forgive you. Because you're trying to save your marriage. Avoid temptation. Don't make yourself strong. People who follow the ones who think I'm strong. Stay away. Be a coward. Run away from temptation. Right? Instead of making yourself, because those who think they stand will fall. The cost of adultery is the price tag is incorrect. In reality, it's misleading. The real price is your soul. The devil wants to destroy your soul. Adultery is the most devastating that can happen to a marriage, second to the death of a spouse. The pain of adultery, they say, is second only to the death of a spouse. Adultery is painful consequence for a family. It shatters trust, intimacy, self-esteem. breaks family, ruins careers, leave a trail of destruction in its path. It affects generations to come. Particularly in Africa. When an elderly man in Africa dies, suddenly you find there are some guys who look like the old man standing next to them. They are there with their suit. You've never seen them anywhere, but on the funeral they're there. That's in Africa. Somehow the aunties knew that there are some other children somewhere else. Because why do they only come on the funeral? And for some reason, in Africa, funerals are time for revelations. In Bible times, adultery was considered a serious offense. In Jewish law, adultery was said to be stoned. But today, we've made it trivialized. Television teaches us about adultery, promotes adultery in movies, and until we justify it in our heads. But when it happens to you, it still has painful consequences. For a person who has been true to the marriage, is a feeling of betrayal and rejection, feeling like I'm not good enough for this person. For the guilty party, there is humiliation, there is shame, there is embarrassment, loss of respect of the children, the church, the in-laws, the community as large. And adultery destroys home, leaving orphans behind and child-headed homes. Many homes have been closed down as a result of adultery. What to do when adultery has happened? Affairs, I said, is the most devastating that can happen to marriage. There needs to be a need for people to confess without appropriating blame. Not that, it's because you made me this. That's not true confession. Nobody makes you to commit adultery. You choose, you decide. You see, to say you because you did this is to add an insult to an injury. If you have done something and you have chosen to do that, you must confess it. I did it because I liked it, because it was my own decision, instead of trying to appropriate blame. And I just want to explain that. I know we're rushing with time. I just want to explain this, that adultery, after that, the person must account for every second and every penny that they have. This is what happens when we get married. We are all given trust for free. This amount of trust. When you commit adultery, that trust goes to zero. Forgiveness does not bring back trust. It must be earned. So while you are forgiven, trust remains zero. And you must earn it step by step. It's like you're in probation. Prove yourself worthy. In the past, you were given trust for free. This time, because I've heard many people say, but you're not forgiving me. Why are you checking me? You are on probation. You are on probation, and then you must earn it until you reach the level that you was before. And when that has happened, the one who has been offended must find grace to forgive. As we conclude, Isaiah 53, verse 5. But he was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement for our peace was upon him, and by his stripes we are healed. When Isaiah looked at the ministry of Jesus, what he will do, he summarized it in Isaiah 53. And he talks about it as one that has already been completed. Because we know it's the Lamb of God that was slain from the foundations of the world. And Isaiah looks and he says, he was wounded for our transgressions. Transgressions is the crossing of the line, doing what you're not supposed to do. He knew that somehow, some of us will cross the line. We will do what we're not supposed to do. We will send wrong messages. We will send wrong WhatsApp messages. We will receive wrong messages. We will go to places we're not supposed to do. How do you pay back for your transgressions? How do you undo your transgression? That's why Calvary came in to say you can't do it by yourself. He allowed himself to be wounded to pay for our transgressions. Isaiah does not end there. He says he was bruised for iniquities. Iniquities is sinning against the light. Iniquities is doing wrong when you know it's wrong. It's to hurt someone when you know it's going to hurt them. And to do it over and over again. What payment can you give
You've been caught last week, caught this week, caught again and again. Iniquity. How do we pay for our iniquities? Isaiah says, that's why he was bruised. His back was beaten like raw meat. He was beaten up so that he can pay for our iniquities. The things we can't take back, the things we have done, and it's known, the community knows, the church knows, the things we can't take back, he allowed himself to be beaten up so that he can take it from you. Bruised for our iniquities. And then he says the chastisement for our peace, the punishment for our peace was upon him. Many of our homes, there are storms tonight. There are storms that are raging. There is no peace. But there, he took the punishment upon himself. He carried the cross to pay so that today we don't fight each other anymore. That today he can stand in the midst of our homes and say, peace be still. Amen. He paid. Calvary, the merits of Calvary, paid for our peace in the midst of our restlessness. And finally, Isaiah, look at the ministry, he says, by his stripes we are healed. As they beat him up, as they opened up, he says the opening of the wounds and the stripes was to close our wound. Was to bring healing. And tonight there are hearts that are bleeding. Tonight there are people, and that some have been bleeding for years, they've been bleeding for months, and the pain is there, it is real. And Calvary was there to pay for your pain today. So that tonight, in spite of what has happened, in spite of how many times your heart has been stabbed and stabbed over and over again, Jesus is coming not to put a bandage, but to heal you. Amen. By his stripes, we are healed. Calvary was for our healing. Calvary, you see, as a man, we make a mess, but Calvary was to clean our mess. Calvary was to do what we cannot do for ourselves. And today you say, I need healing. I need my family to be healed. I need personal healing. Heal me, Jesus. Calvary, I want to claim the merits of Calvary. To say, by those merits, I don't have to continue with my pain. I don't have to continue crying. Because of Calvary, I can find healing. Because of Calvary, I can find peace. Because of Calvary, I can find forgiveness. If that's your wish, you need healing for your home, for your family, you personally. I'll ask you to stand as we pray together. I need healing. Those stripes was for us. We'll ask our pastor to come and pray for us, to present us before God. That God might heal us and make us whole. That we can go here, the pain can go away. The disappointments can go away. The frustration, the humiliation that we have suffered can go away. Because he was humiliated. He suffered for us. So that our shame today can disappear. The fact that even young people have been talking about us, talking about our families. The shame, the embarrassment. He went to Calvary and he was crucified naked. He was embarrassed for us. So that he can take our embarrassment today.
Baba vedu vari kudenga. Tinouya kwamuri pamanhero ano. Tizvikambira mukati meruoko rwenyu. Seeking for healing. Nekuti hakuna kumwe kwatingaenda. Tiri pano takamira kudai. Hakuna neupenyu hwakawanzika pamberi penyu. Upenyu hwedu hwose hwakazaruka like an open book before you. Tati chikumbirisawo kuregerera. Kati bedzimba dzedu vamwe vedu havasi kurara, kuchema nokupopotedzana pamanherano. Mwari, dzoseredzai nokuumbiridza zvakapwanyika. Tikukumbira rudo rwechokwadi rwuiswe mukati medzimba dzedu. Vana vedu vadzidze rudo kubva kwatiri savabereki. Tiregerere kudarika kwedu. Pamanerano Mwari uchava mufaro wedu mukuru. Apo misha yedu ichava matenga madiki. Mugomuzadza nomufaro unobva kumusoro kudenga. Ngerozi dzenyu dzatenderera panyika ino dzifarire kugara pamisha yedu. Nekuti panenge pazere nomufaro. Kuda kunamatira muranda wenyu wamatumira. Naye muitirewo zvakanaka. Pamwe chete nemhuri yake after he has done so much. Building so many homes. Restoring so many hopes and so many families. We pray so that he may not be lost. Be with his family. Be with his children. May you also increase love and honesty in his family. We cannot fight it alone. We need Christ. We need the Holy Spirit. We need the angels to guide us and to protect us and help us to shun evil and to run away from temptation. Give us a good night rest. Mangwana muti dzosezvo tigonzwa zvimwe zveukuru hwedu. Tanamata tichitenda muzita raJesu, ugane kusingaperi. Amen.